If you're pouring your heart into your podcast, but still struggling to turn those listeners into paying clients, I've got something just for you. Imagine having a clear, simple plan to turn your listeners into buyers without relying on a huge audience or spending hours on social media. That's exactly what we'll create together in a podcast profit plan discovery call. During this free 20-minute call, I'll help you discover more opportunities for profit in your podcast and give you the next best step to turn your show into a client attracting machine. If I've got an offer that will help you expedite this process, then we can also discuss working together. Book your free podcast profit plan discovery call now by going to podcastingformoms.co/profit plan or by clicking the link in the show notes. I can't wait to chat with you. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Podcasting for Moms. I am quickly jumping in here to let you know that this is a live podcast audit episode. However, this was recorded before I switched from Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs to Podcasting for Moms. So I do say welcome to the first live audit on Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. And the person I am auditing is a male instead of a female. So I wanted to quickly disclaim that before jumping in. But it's a really great audit and I hope you really enjoy it. If you want to get your podcast audited, make sure to apply via the link in the episode description. And yeah, hope you enjoy the episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to Podcasting for Moms, the show for moms in business ready to start, grow, and scale a podcast that turns their listeners into buyers. I'm Jenny Sonneson, a podcast strategist and fellow mom entrepreneur. You're in the right place if you want to learn how to start and grow a podcast that attracts your ideal clients and really does the heavy lifting for you when it comes to selling your offers, all while balancing life as a busy mom. Are you ready to create a podcast that grows your income, impact, and influence? Let's make podcasting work for you because as moms, we know how to get things done. All right, let's jump into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome to our very first live podcast audit on Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. Today we have Darrell here of the Computers with Ease podcast, and we're going to be doing a live audit of his show. So welcome to the show, Darrell.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive in. Before we started recording, I was saying I've done a bunch of audits before, but I've never done it live. So I'm curious to see how it goes. But yeah, so I had you fill a really short form that you included some details, but for the purpose of the show, between now and maybe say the next 6 months, what is like one thing that you want to achieve from your podcast? It can be pretty much anything, but what is that one thing so we can laser in on that?
I want to get more listeners and
Mm-hmm.
more engagement.
Okay.
Um, so that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. And when it comes to like that growth of listenership and things like that, what do you feel like your big roadblock with that is currently?
Well, I've been doing podcasts for years
Okay.
as part of my business, but it's never really taken off. And
Okay.
I've just switched to a new host. And so it's like I'm starting over again. And rather than try everything to see what works, I thought when I saw your item about doing this,
Hmm.
I thought, why not get help from an expert in the
Right.
beginning and save myself a whole lot of aggravation?
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I got you. Awesome. So who would you say that your ideal listener for your show is?
I would say people relatively new to podcasting
Okay.
because I'm a tech support person
o-
and a teacher as well. So I take the tech stuff and make it simple.
Okay. Okay. So are you just talking about setting up podcasts and things like that? Or are you diving more into other things too? The
Uh,
tech stuff.
well, I find it seems to be a combination of the podcasting, the recording, but there's also a computer component to it
Okay.
because so many people don't have the computer skills and
Mm-hmm.
they get part way into the podcast itself and then they run into a computer issue and they just don't have the skills to solve that and continue, so they get derailed.
Yes. Yes. Yep. I feel like I experience that with people too, because they experience that like tech illiteracy and then they're like, they fall off. So I totally understand that. So, first thing I want to like kind of let you know is that it was really hard to find your show on platforms other than Spotify. I'm not sure if that's intentional, but I think if I had a hard time finding it and I'm someone who like does this for a living, that means other people might have the same issue. So, I did want to point that out just in case you weren't aware. But yeah, it was challenging to find your show as a whole because I don't know, it just kept trying to pull up a show in like another, I think it was like Taiwan or something. And I was like, well, I don't think this is right.
And
But I found it on Spotify.
no, and that's where when I said a moment ago that I had switched to a different way
Mhm.
of doing it, I moved to Spotify. I had my own website through my business before,
Uh-huh.
and I had something like 100 episodes
Okay.
there. And then when I got rid of the website because it wasn't working, I moved the podcast to Spotify, and I
Right.
haven't put it on other
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
areas yet because that was one of the things I was hoping that you would give me some advice on through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say get on at least Apple. I know Spotify makes it pretty easy to get on Apple. They have like a little button where you can just click and then it kind of prompts you all the steps to do that. But that's like a big platform. I know most people, the bulk of their listeners actually do come from Apple because most people in the world do have an Apple device. So I definitely would highly recommend getting on that. But I know it's easy to submit to other platforms directly in Spotify if Spotify's your host. So I
Okay.
can give you some feedback on that. But I definitely think that's important just because like I said, I had a challenging time finding it aside from Spotify because, I mean, obviously you're not on other platforms right now, which totally makes sense. And then I know you said you're kind of restarting. So this current feed is like your last episode was in July. So going forward, are you planning to do more consistent episodes or what is your plan for that?
Yes, I would like to, in the new year, I would like to try and do 2 episodes a month
Yep.
and
Okay.
get more going and possibly expand to once a week, depending on how
If you
things
can
go.
manage that. Yeah. Yeah. I
Right.
think I think twice a month is a great cadence because I feel like if you're just doing monthly, it's just not enough to sustain that interest. So I think twice a month is a good place to start. And then, if you feel like you're comfortable with it, you can kind of segue to weekly, once you feel like you can handle that capacity. Because it's harder to do more and then have to scale back versus like starting slower and then scaling up.
Right.
So that's great. And another thing I did notice too is okay, so your name is Computers with Ease, your podcast name, right?
Yep.
I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect because, like, just by not knowing anything, I would think you were teaching people how to use different computer softwares and stuff and not necessarily like setting up a podcast. So, I mean, I'm not saying you can't have that title, you definitely could, but I would definitely kind of elaborate on that in some way so that it's more clear what you were podcasting about. Because, like I said, with that title, I'm thinking like you're teaching people how to use a computer versus the podcast alignment. And you can definitely do more than just the podcast alignment if you want to, but just as a whole, like reading that, that's not what I'm like, that's not where my brain goes immediately. So I would say clarity would be great there because that adds for more searchability and visibility with your show, which in turn brings more listeners, which is your overarching big goal that you want to achieve. So I would say, even if you don't change the name of it, I would say adding what I like to call a keyword extension to your podcast name. So it'd be like computers with ease, and then it would be like a tagline, but searchable. Like all the things in the tagline would be searchable. So, for example, this podcast is called Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. When people type in podcasting, my show comes up because podcasting is literally in the title. But then I also include podcasting tips for service providers and entrepreneurs in like the podcast name as well. So it's not technically the name of my show, it's just like an extension of my show. So that helps when people type in podcasting tips or podcasting or entrepreneurs, I can show up in the searches on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and even Google. So that's a really great, like free organic way to get more people to the show. And then also like things like optimizing your podcast description as well. You do have a little bit there, I see, but kind of adding to that, putting more keywords in that as well can really help more people find the show because it's, getting seen on Apple and Spotify and even Google. So that's important too. And you can also add a name to your host, like your host name as well. So your name is there, but you can add like, you know, whatever your title is if it's keyword rich. You don't have to do that part, but if you have something that can be like searchable, you can add there.
Okay.
Another thing, your cover art is just a picture of yourself, which I don't know if you were planning on changing that or anything, but I would say having the podcast title on the image is really important because if people just see a picture of you and they don't know you and they don't see the title, it they're like, "Who's that? I don't know who that is." So having the title there too, it's like, oh, they're attaching that name of the show with the person that is hosting the show versus just seeing a photo of them and being like, I don't know what this is about. I don't know who that is. It just gives them more clarity and more like details up front because that is like your first impression. They see your cover art and they're like, "Do I want to listen to this? Do I want to like even click to read the description?" And if they don't get past that test of, I don't want to click to read the description because this is not compelling enough, then you lost someone right off the bat. So
See, this is why you're the expert.
I've been doing this since 2019 is when I started the podcast thing. So I had a little bit of time under my belt to make that happen. But that was like just by taking a quick look, that's like the core thing that I noticed is just with your goal of growth and visibility, I think those couple things, like making those tweaks will make a huge, huge difference. And then from there, you can focus on more like intense things like, optimizing your descriptions for your show, like each episode, writing show notes, different things like that. But I would say that would be like the first thing I would fix once you start actively podcasting again in the new year, because that will give you the opportunity to, people will see your show. You'll be able to be discovered as well. And they'll find your show and then they see that cover art and then it's more compelling and it's not, you know, if they don't know you and they see your picture, they're like, I don't know who that is. So even myself, like they would be like, who is that girl? So I think having your name and then just optimizing it in that way can make a huge difference. And then from there, you will start to see some traction. And I'm a huge proponent of like, you don't have to post on social media. I know a lot of people preach that, but I don't think you need to post your show on social media if that's not for you. You can definitely grow with just having those keywords and making sure that everything else is optimized in that way. Um, so yeah, that was like my biggest thing that I saw for you. And I think that's a really big opportunity for you to kind of get started and get out there with those things. And then kind of from there you can, okay, cool. Now I have this. People are starting to find me. What can I do next? That's like a good first step for you.
Uh-huh. I like it because the other thing that I'm hoping for that is definitely part of the marketing is they'll once people find me, they'll start asking questions,
Mm-hmm.
answering the polls that I
Yes.
plan on doing in Spotify. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll have more ideas about topics of what
Yes.
the people want
Yeah.
to
But you need
learn
to get
about.
people there for that to happen.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, first step is getting those people there. And then once they're there, engaging with them, doing all these other tactics. There's so many different things you can do. It's just first it's about getting people to actually listen and hit play. And then from there, once they're there, they're listening, they're engaged, then it's much easier to keep them around. But you just have to do that first step to get them as a listener in the first place. So
Yeah. And at this point, I'm basically at zero.
right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the perfect place to be because you can only go up from there. So, yeah.
That's true. That's very true. I would just prefer a much faster
Yeah, it
lift
it
off if
it
you
it
were.
can be a little slow, but like I said, if you do this optimization on the front end and get all that kind of ready before you even restart the podcast, I think that'll make a big difference for you. And you're already starting ahead versus like, running to publish new episodes and not optimizing this and optimizing this later. It just gives you that leg up so that when then from there, it's just about tweaking like, okay, cool. I saw an uptick because I had, this keyword that I added in. Like, let's see what else I can do. It's all about tweaking. So every 3 months, I kind of see, okay, cool. It looks like I got this many more listeners. What can I do to tweak it and make it even more clear, even better? What can I refine? Things like that. But first, it's all about just getting it out there in the first place. So,
Okay. So then I have another question,
yeah.
if I may. How do you feel about once you're to the point where, as you say, every 3 months, whatever you're checking, you see changes? How do you feel about doing experimentation in terms of, oh, what happens if I change this? Add this keyword or
Hmm.
do something else. How do you feel about that in terms of, is it a risk that you're going to lose a bunch of people if you make the change? Or do you stay the way you are once you have it working to whatever level you're
Yeah. That's a good question.
comfortable with?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I don't think you're gonna lose people. You may not see as high of gains if you make tweaks and they're not like necessarily the best ones, but I don't think you'll lose people unless you like completely change the format or you stop podcasting for months or like big drastic changes. You might not, you might kind of plateau, like your listenership might stay the same, but it's not going to decrease or like it might increase a little bit, but it's not going to decrease because it's like the people who are there and already like you are gonna stick around. The whole thing, like, with tweaking the keywords and stuff, that's for new people. It's not gonna impact the people who are already there. They're still gonna be subscribed unless they decide to unsubscribe, but they're still gonna be around. It's not like you added a new keyword and people automatically get unsubscribed or something. So, I would just say, yeah, I would you might see, okay, it's, like, starting to plateau a little bit. Let me go back to what it was at or something. But you're not gonna lose people per se, you just won't gain new people, if that makes sense.
It does, and it's another one of those things that I'm always afraid to go too far. It's like the old saying, "If it isn't broken, don't fix it."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I would say, like, if you're seeing it increase, like, keep it the same, right? Like, if you're seeing upticks every month, like, even if it's just, like, 2%, if you're seeing some sort of uptick, like, I think you can kind of leave as is and kind of see. But if you're seeing it start to plateau or, you know, maybe some months will be decreased because it's like even if your current listeners are subscribed, that doesn't mean they listen to every single episode you put out. Like sometimes the topic won't be something they need or they're busy or something. Like not every single one of my listeners listens to every single episode that is on my show. Maybe it doesn't apply to them. Like maybe they already have a podcast and it's an episode about launching. They're not going to listen to that podcast because they already launched. Versus like if it's a podcast episode about growth and they haven't launched yet, they're not going to listen either because they haven't launched yet. Why are they going to listen about growing? I mean, they could, but they're more likely to tune into something that is like to their current stage. So it's not realistic to expect our listeners to listen to every single episode. But if you're seeing like major like drop offs or like real plateaus, then I would say then that's when you make those tweaks. And you can also ask them too, like, what do you guys want to hear from me? Because I know you said you wanted to add polls and do some engagement and things like that. You can also do that too, not just with like polls, but also, if you have an email list or directly on the show, you can have like a little mini listener survey where they tell you, like, I really liked this episode. I want to hear more about XYZ. So you can survey them in that way too. And that's where you can kind of see what do my people want to hear? Because the whole point of your podcast is not doing stuff you want to do, even though, obviously we want to enjoy it too, but it's about what your listeners want to hear from you because that's the reason you have your show.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'm just the method for
Hmm.
them to get the information
Exactly.
that they
Exactly.
need.
Yeah.
And if I enjoy doing it, that's a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't wanna hate it either, like, you don't wanna do something you don't wanna
No,
be like, "Oh, I hate this," like, because no one's forcing you to create the podcast, right? Whereas, like, if you're in a corporate job, you might hate it and you might be stuck there, but, like, the podcast is, like, no one's making you do it, so you wanna enjoy it to some extent, but,
right.
your listeners are gonna shape what you do because that's who it's for, essentially, so
Yeah.
any final questions for me before we wrap up?
No, I think
Okay.
that basically covers it very well. Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being my first one of these. I enjoyed this. I think it's really fun to connect with people, one on one and be able to share with everyone else. I hope if you're here listening, you were able to learn something too. If you're newer to podcasting and just getting started and you want to, you need to get that, or even if you've been podcasting for a while and you didn't have keywords, that's, normal too. I didn't have them when I first started, and I definitely didn't have them after a year because I didn't really know that was a thing. And podcasting has evolved so much in the past couple of years. So I hope everyone listening got some clarity about their keywords and clarity about what they should do and what steps they should take too. So thank you so much, Darrell. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for letting me experiment on you for the first live audit. So thank you so much.
No problem. Appreciate it and had fun.
Thank you for tuning into Podcasting for Moms. I hope today's episode gave you the tools and inspiration you need to make your podcast work smarter, not harder. If you love what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It means the world and helps other moms in business find the show. For more tips, resources, and support, head to podcastingformoms.co. Remember, you're not just building a podcast, you're building your legacy. Until next time, friends.